Hey, welcome back to my little corner of YouTube. Working on Voron 0.1. Let's jump right in it. So, last episode we did our lead screw. Got that all set up. Pretty basic. Had that lubed up, installed it. Mounted our connections to both the bed and to the frame. It's a little odd there getting to that. Getting to some of these screws is a little bit difficult. Specifically, these guys down here. Down there. Nothing too much to say about it really. So let's see where we're at today. So x-axis, one of the actually the biggest outside of the bed, the biggest portion of this whole thing, and kind of our jump off point to getting into some more fun, some belting and some electronics. So we're gonna start off this time building our XY joints. I see some idlers in there, some spacers, and some printed spacers, and some other things. So I'm going to go ahead and set that printer off a little bit and take a look at what we have. All right, so according to the screen, we're going to need some parts. We're going to specifically need our XY printed parts, our joints, our idlers, or bearings, I should say. No teeth on those. And some spacers. Grab those as well. And at some point we're going to need our alignment tools for our linear rail. Not quite yet though. Alright. So let's see if I can set this someplace better. And actually let's do this guy right here. Yeah. So what we're working with here are our printed parts. We have two that are a mirror of each other, basically looking for something that looks like that guy right there. There's the bottom, top, oddball shape. Same thing in a mirror. So you have your sided, both sides of them, and then the other portion of that goes with each one of those right there. Like that. Put those down, and first things first, we're going to be doing some heat certs. So we're going to toast that iron up to about 230 ish. There we go. And I have to grab myself some certs. It says 2, but I'm going to grab 4 because basically everything we do here we're going to do twice. So we're using this guy, and just to save us all a little bit of time, I know I'm going to do it twice, so I'm going to do 2 at the same time. So basically this is going to be one there and one here. And on the other side, again, we're kind of jumping through the manual a little bit here. It only takes so much pacing myself. And then we're going to apply slight pressure, not too much, as vertical as possible. Try to get that sunk where we want it. And where we want it is pretty much flat with the surface of the part. Possibly ever so slightly recessed, but not by much. So there's that. Number 2. On its way. Like that. Perfect. get these other two. And then just as a side note, probably already know this. I'm sure this probably isn't the first Voron video you've watched, but if these do go in slightly cockeyed, you can always heat them up and move them a little bit. It's not the preferred method because when you're trying to heat these up, you know, you go weaken the plastic a little bit. But one of the things to be mindful of is when you do push these in, is, you know, the purpose isn't just to get them into the plastic, it's to get that plastic melted around all the little grooves that are built into these, to enable them to really grab. You know, you want everything kind of to flow around it. If they just get pushed in, you haven't really accomplished anything. You want that plastic to basically meld and mold right around those inserts. All right, so we have those two in right there, and we are working with, let me see, I want to get the right one. That one right there. Set that one aside, and then this guy right here, that too. One of the biggest things when you're doing this is you want to make sure I personally like to line my parts up like they show in the pictures. It just helps me make sure that I have things the way that they're supposed to be. Because if I don't, it's probably going to be backwards. So, that being said, let's see if I can do screen. Nah, I don't like that camera. We'll do this one. All right, so we'll zoom in a little bit there. Let's build our stack. So our stacks will require us to get some 25 millimeter screws. So some M3 by 25 button head screws. So 2 each for these. So 1, 2 there. And there's gonna be 2 for the other one. And then let's see here. We're gonna start off by grabbing the part we didn't do the heat sets in. I'm gonna hold that in the position that matches the screen I'm looking at. And I'm going to go ahead and put those in like that and like that. So basically what you're looking at is something like that right there, which also matches up with what you see on the screen right here. Okay. All right, so we have that and that. So now we're going to flip this over like so. I'm going to place it flat on my work surface. There. And we're going to go into this camera. And I'm going to put this back in the position that matches the way I'm looking at on the screen. And first things first is we're going to get one of these 2 spacers on here. So spacer right there. And then 2 of our shims / washers. Remember, a difference between a shim and a washer is how it's manufactured. Washer being stamped and a shim having more precision. I guess it could be stamped, but who might argue? All right, so then we have our stack like that. And then on the other side, that, and then 2 more washers. And then basically what we've done here, we've made ourselves a little sandwich. So like that. And basically what you've done is the back side of a belt will be riding on the back on those right there, those flat surfaces. Okay, so spacer, 2 shims, your bearings, 2 more shims, washers. All right, so that is that one. On the other side, we're basically going to do the same, but just kind of upside down. And the reason for that is because our two belts are going to cross paths, but they are not going to collide, because that would not be good. So space, washer, washer, bearing, bearing, and then washer, washer. These are hard to get out. Let's see here. Handy dandy magnet here. Washer, washer, okay. And then on top of that, we're going to have our printed spacer. So if we were to look at that, you have one side basically with your bearings up and one side with your bearings down, and your belt widths will be able to pass each other because of that distance in that spacer right here. So that's what you're looking at. All right, so this is upside down assembly on this. Assemble upside down, join piece upside down. That makes sense. And then what they want us to do is to basically take our second part for this and place it on top. So we're going to be taking the part we put the heat inserts on, this one right here. And basically we have a heat insert here and a heat insert here that these screws are going to go up through. And then we're going to use a self-tapping M2x10 screw right here for some odd, ungodly reason. Don't know why, but we're going to do what they tell us to do. So we have that, we have that, we have this. I'm going to try to align these a little bit. So when we tighten them up, it works out. Just going to put a couple of spins on the screws. Guess that wasn't in yet. Okay, there we go. We get one. The other started. And then basically at third position is for an alignment. But not the reason why I was asking why we're doing that is I'm not quite sure why we're using a self-tapper versus just using another insert. So self-tapping screws into plastic. It's one of those things that you would think would be all that preferred, but there's got to be a method to the madness, right? So let's get that one in. And I'm actually going to loosen these guys up a little bit. Let that move freely. Okay. And then get the self-tapper in there. Because honestly, I'm more worried about the self-tapper going in properly than the other screws, because there's nothing really stopping this from going whatever direction it really wants. If it found a different, better path for itself, it easily could just take it. I really do not like these LDO screws. None of them. See, at first I thought possibly, maybe, just maybe, you know, my tools, maybe my My hex wrenches were too small, just, you know, ever so small. But I'll tell you what, almost every single screw in this LDO kit seems to be slightly too easy to kind of strip out. And at this point, there's portions of my frame that I can't take apart. I'd have to drill them out to get them out. So hopefully we're all good there. All right, so there we have it. That should be one side of it. So looking at the screen, matching it up to what I have, that one looks good, and I can guarantee you that we're going to do the same thing again. So let's do it again. All right, grab that, and we'll put our screws through again. Basically, that's one on either side of, one on either side of that post that comes up. There we go. Let's see here, and I'm gonna hold that away from me, and we're gonna go grab a bunch of these. We're gonna go with 2 shims and this guy over here. Meanwhile, this will go over here, and then 2 shims over here. Build these up at the same time. Down, 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 down. Printed spacer. Oh, wait a second. Shim, shim, printed spacer, and then 2 more shims on this other side. Like so. So there we go. All right. Yes, it is. All right, so put that on. Like that. Try to hold it together a little bit while we do it. Okay, whoop. We'll get the other side too. There we go. Then we need our self tapper. Those are still loose. See, I can still move this. Just so I can align everything. There's a little hole in the top of the or in the top of that post that comes up that you want to align with. Okay, and then I'm going to tighten up my 2 others. And again, I've said before, I'll say it again, hopefully other people say it too, is when you tighten anything going up into plastic or through plastic, you know, especially a metal screw through plastic, keep in mind that the metal will always win against plastic. So you don't want to ream the heck out of that. You just want it, you know, tight, nice and tight. That's about all you can ask for. So there we go. We got 2 of these guys. Let's see, we get them just there. We go. So same but different. One side and the other. All right. So where are we at now? Yeah, we did that part. Any words there to read? Nope, no words. All good. All right. So the x-axis. Okay, the rail. So we got the extrusion and the rail. Always these self-tapping screws, they scare me. And I'm going to talk about something that comes with the kit and something you can print and why you may choose to do the print as opposed to what comes with the kit. So, the kit comes with these things, and they're pretty awesome. They are tapped and threaded, so they work really well for going inside of your extrusions. They slide in like that, so you can make your attachments of your linear rails to these, but they're a little heavy. So let's take a look at something real quick here. If you're not aware, one of the worst things, or not worst things, but one of the things you look out for whenever you're making a printer is that your gantry is as light as possible. And the reason for that is the heavier your gantry is, the more slop, the more mass you have moving around at speed. And the lighter it is, it's a whole, butterfly, quick as a bee type of thing. So you want your gantry to be nice and light and be able to move quickly but stop quickly, your accelerations and things like that. So I want to make my gantry as light as possible. So like I said before, it comes with this part. You can print an ABS version of it that you insert your own M2 nuts into, and I'm just going to show you the difference between the two in weight. And again, you might think I'm blowing this out of proportion, or you might not think this is very important, but trust me, I think it's important. I think a lot of people would agree this is important. There are people that spend a lot of money to get their hut ends as light as possible, and this is kind of the start of that. If you don't start with a decent base, there's no purpose in moving forward from that. So this is easy, it's free, something you can do. And so that extrusion all by itself is 45 grams. That extrusion with that piece is 60. So this piece alone, this right here, is 15 grams. Okay. So 45 for that. Let's check to see how much this thing is with the nuts installed. I am at 47. So this is 2 grams with the nuts in the plastic. So I'm saving 13 grams, which is pretty substantial. To give you an idea what 13 grams is, let me see what I got around here. What is 13 grams equal to? Let's see. I might be. Well, it's about a third of a whole pad of sticky notes. It's 13 grams. That right there is 15 grams. My Loctite quick stick, so that's about the same amount of weight right there, give or take. 2 grams different. So if you have the opportunity, if you're printing parts, print that little guy right there, even if you get a kit that comes with those, specifically for your gantry. You do not need them for the other ones if you have those, but I do suggest use them for your gantry. So back up here to the screen, they have them inserting either of those 2 pieces into your gantry, and you can choose to use whichever one you choose. But this is my suggestion. So that's going on there. And we're going to be putting this on as well. I'm going to move these stoppers to a hole that I'm not going to be using for screws. Not taking them off completely, put them back on there, but now we have access to the screws. So we're gonna need some M2x6s. 2x6s. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, another thing I'll note is there are additional holes on here. If you want to put more nuts in there and more screws, it's overkill. Some people would just put 3 in there. You could put them in every hole if you want to. That's up to you. Again, it's a weight thing, and one of these screws do not weigh a lot, so but every little bit counts, right? So let's get our M2 screws in. If we get one on there, we should be able to get the rest pretty easily. That spacing is already predetermined for us, whether or not we're using the printable nut holder or the one that comes with the LDO kit. And I got some grease in one of my holes here, so I'm going to pull that out. Paper towels, so we'll just pull that out. And you know what? I probably should be using a little bit of Loctite. So let's go ahead and grab some Loctite. And again, I'm not tightening these up very much. I'm just, call it finger tight. Just enough to hold them in place. We'll pull back out a couple of these, put Loctite on those as well. Just a tiny smidge. The screws are so small and the threads are so tiny that you really don't need much. If you're worried about using Loctite because of some things that people say about Loctite and plastic ABS, other things, you can use clear nail polish. Some people do that. If you do, I don't suggest use the quick drying type because it will probably dry up and lock you in there before you're even ready. I did a little research to find out what exactly Loctite can do to plastic. I haven't done any testing myself, but from what I saw, most of the reports of Loctite affecting from plastics were relatively old. I'm not sure how relevant those things are now, but there again, like I said, I haven't done any testing myself, so use at your own risk, right? All right, so they are showing us to preload 2 M3 nuts on either end of that, so we'll have to do that. So right here and right here, M3 nuts, and then they're also showing us that we have 25 millimeters from the end, and that we're going to use our guides to center it. So let's get that done. Let's see if I have a couple of these. A couple of those. Spoke too soon about preloading nuts. I think I'm still stuck doing it. I guess the worst thing about the preloading of nuts is if you forget, because then you're going backwards. There's nothing you can do about it. Once your extrusion is in the frame or has the ends blocked off, you're not getting any nuts in there. That one, and then get this one right here. So if you're watching, you've watched this far through, you're enjoying the video, like this type of video, do hit that like button. It does help out. Actually, hitting the like button helps more than hitting the subscribe button. So if you like it, let YouTube know, because it helps me out quite a bit. I'll tell you right up front, I am not huge YouTube guy or anything like that. Started doing these videos because I wanted to build some printers. I had fun with 3D printing, and I thought that this would be a good way to have something that may be semi-permanent that my kids could look back on, or grandkids, who knows, right? People started watching, people tend to like them, so you know, everybody wins, right? So I'm going to preload these. I'm wondering if I'm going to wind up getting in trouble because I'm not going to have enough room for these, but we'll see in a second, I guess. I guess we're fine. And I'm sure it's so we can mount our ends on this when that time comes. And I probably could just get away with putting nuts in these ones because they're not going to go very far. They could fall out, but that's about the worst that could happen. Well, let's do that. All right, and then we have our adjustments on there, and then we're looking for 25 millimeters here. All right, so turn this guy on, zero it out, and we want 25. You'll never get the exact number I want. There we go, 24.99, close enough. All right, so 24.99, 25 if you're a perfectionist. Okay. And interesting enough, 25 on one side, and I have a lot more than 25 on the other side. Why is that? Use guide position. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is I have, it's kind of hard to do this on camera, but I have I call it 25 right there. On this side, I have slightly more than that. So I'm going to split the difference. Could be my extrusion slightly long. Could be my calipers are slightly off. These are super expensive Home Depot calipers. So I'm at probably 25 and a half on that, maybe 25 and a quarter. Who knows? I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down now. Let's get two really tight. Make sure those are still centered where we want them. Move that aside. Move this one. There we go. All right, that comes off, that comes off. Put those aside. There we go. We have a pre-lubed rail. Now, if you do notice that this looks a little different than the others, right? And that's because one of my LDO rails was clunky as hell. Can't hear it in the audio, but I can tell you it feels like it's going over a rumble strip on the highway. This one's smooth, so I had spare rails here. LDO did offer to replace that one, but I already had some, so it wasn't worth the bother. Sorry. All right, so screen, let's see. We got that, we've done that, we've done that. What's next? All right, so at this point, they want us to install 2 more M3 nuts on what looks like the back side of this. So based on the picture, what you're looking at, it looks like this. So these are going to go on this side right here. right here in the back. Let's flip it around so I can see it. As much as I'd like to show you guys everything as much as I can, sometimes I have to be able to see what I'm doing. For the people out there that have made a bunch of printers, I suggest you make a video if you haven't, because it's like a whole nother level of fun to record putting together a printer and trying to do everything backwards. But you know what? Hobbies have to be fun. Sometimes they're frustrating, but they're always fun, right? All right, so we have those two. I showed it near the center, so I'll put it near the center. Probably doesn't matter much, but there they are. Okay, so we have those two in the back. According to the screenshot, they're right there. So now we're going to attach our ends to our rail and extrusion. And the way that looks is they have theirs facing upwards right here. They also show it right here with the upwards. They show it here downwards. So I'm going to work with this up to start off with. We're going to need some M3x12s and some M3x6s. So I'm going to grab those real quick. Let's see, M3x12s. I need 3 of those. And 2 M3x6s. All right, so we got that. And we are going to make things face the direction that we see them in. So this is going to go over on this end. Okay, there's actually a little stop point in here that's molded into the plastic when we printed it. Here on the very end, it's hard to see. Let's see if I can get a good angle to show it. Maybe like 180. It's like flying an airplane. It's hard to see up there, but basically there's a slot down on the bottom of this piece where the extrusion goes to keep us in line. And it's actually a stop on there too. So we go right to that stop point where we want to be. We have to pull that back off to put my screws where I want them, but that's where that's going to wind up in the long run. So, and then the other side is going to go on the exact same way. And actually, before I do that, I can show that slot. So right in here, see that rise right there? And then at the very end there's a bump, so that helps us get aligned. There we go. So we'll put this on. Like so. Once we have these actually screwed in, we can take out our stops. We won't need them anymore. But before we do that, I got to get things where we need them. So at this point, they're showing things like this, where this will get the single screw and this will get the double screw. Show you what I'm looking at right here. Single screw on my right hand side with a double screw on the left hand side. And those are the M3s. Let me say that. So that's the M3x12. And what I'm going to do is, it's actually catching on that. Let's take that. Now is that going, okay, that's going to go in the far end hole. Okay. So I need my screw to actually, that's going to be near the end. So I don't think I can use these on this. I could cut off this end. Let me try that real quick. Makes it kind of useless, but let's do that. That's going to wind up right about there. No, it's going to take it right out. It's going to put the nut directly in on this one. That. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-put my M3x12 kind of in a holding pattern. It's going to be a pain, I can tell. So get that nut in there. Get that in there. And then okay, I can see my nut right there, and just got to get the grab. There we go. All right, so that grab, slide that in all the way to the end. When I say the end, I'm talking about the end of the plastic. You don't want that. Actually, it will go all the way and rub the bearing. You want to hold that. You want to hold that away from actually touching the bearing. So you want that to line up with the plastic. They don't talk about that specifically, but I can't see any good reason to have that touching the plastic or the extrusion touching the bearing. So don't do that. Let's see here, and now on the other side we got two that we need to get, and I'm going to do this side a little bit different. Try a different way of doing this real quick. Maybe this will be a good way, maybe it won't. You get to decide what you do. So what I'm going to do on this end, we know they're going in the same way, so this guy's going on over here to match the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on like that, and I'm going to see if I can just get a thread or two onto that nut. And then I'm going to do the second screw as well, which I probably should have done first, but nonetheless, like that. So we get on that. All right, there we go. So kind of preload those nuts on there, and I'm going to see if I can just slide that on as it sits. Something like this. First one in there, second one doesn't want to play nice. Come on. There we go. All right, so got them both in there. That actually worked out pretty well. So if you want to use that tip, maybe it'll help you. Who knows? Okay. And again, I want to keep this lined up with the plastic. I'm just going to tighten it down a little bit. Like that. And there is our piece. Flipped around. Alright, so now we got to flip this thing over and put our, let's see, our M3x6s in here. So flipping over, going down, doing this one now. All right, so I'm gonna slide these guys over. And eyeball those into the holes. That. And put our screw in. And that caught right away, that's good. And where's our other screw? lose it. Well, that's odd. We'll grab another one. All right. And that's an airtight too. So I don't usually put Loctite on screws that are going through plastic and into a metal piece. And the reason I don't is because that plastic is meldable, meaning as you tighten the screw, it's actually always going to have kind of a, you know, a force on that screw. It's stronger than the screw, so the screw is going to compress. I mean, the plastic is going to compress and expand, or try to expand back out when it does. So in its own right, it kind of holds the screw in there for you. So at this point, took off our end pieces. So there is our slide. All right, so where does that put us? Puts us to verify assembly. Okay. So they want us to verify the fact that we have our bearing stack on the right hand side up top and on the left hand side down bottom. So let's look at that real quick. So I gotta remember, so this is my left. Okay, so this is my left hand side and this is right hand side. So actually, let me do it. Left hand side, right hand side. Yeah, so that stack is correct as it sits right there. So that works. And then they want us to look at the ends. So side view, let's see, side view, image idler on one side. Let's see here, this would be, how they want me to do this? They want that. Yeah, so, and then basically when you're looking at it, let's take a look at this real quick. Go here. When you're looking at that right there and you turn it that way, you have basically your stack in one direction, and you flip it around and your stack's on top versus on bottom based on looking at it from the front. So everything looks good. So now it wants to go ahead and attach this thing, which is crazy talk, but let's go ahead and get that done. Let's bring the printer back over and clear up our bench a little bit here. Give us a little bit of room. Make sure I do that real quick. Back this guy up. There we go, and position it a little bit for all you fine folks. And this is going to sit something like this. Now we're starting to see all of our movements, all of our parts and pieces. So I can tell you that there's a little space in between all this, and during our final assembly checks, we're going to wind up probably extending these out a little bit, because as of right now there's play in between them, but that's not a big deal. We can take care of that in a little bit. So we're going to need some M2 by 6 screws. M2 by 6. Now they're calling for FHCS screws, and I don't believe the LDO kit comes with any of those, but let me double check. Wait a second. 2 by 6. It does. Got them. All right, we got them. Spoke too soon. All right, so we're going to need 8 of these total. of which it looks like there's about 8 in this little baggie. So let's not drop any, right? These guys are tiny. I'm going to have to move this a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. If you line your plastic pieces up with your linear rails, meaning like your ends of your plastic will line up with the ends of the linear rail, your screw holes should line up pretty well. Let's try not to drop any more screws, huh? All right. I don't have a lot of M2 screws in my stock. Let's see if these are magnetic at all. Where will the magnet go? I'm losing everything tonight. Okay, it's 3, and I'm just, again, I'm barely even going finger tight with these. I'm definitely leaving them loose for the time being. And the reason for that is I don't need these to pull in any certain direction yet. It's not catching. Isn't that one catching? Maybe it is. All right. So I'm just going to set in a couple on this side as well. If I can get them in. I might be too far away. Yep. I'm going to have to loosen these up first. So I'm going to loosen up the screws that are kind of holding these end pieces on. We're going to give them a little bit of an adjustment here. Kind of already knew as soon as we put this on that these are going to be a little bit too far apart. So we might as well fix that now. So with that, and switch this over to this. So loosening this bottom up. Okay. I just want these ever so slightly loosened. They don't need to be very loose, just enough so we can move everything a little bit. So put that back on top of its head. And at this point, let's bring our extrusion forward. So we know that we're off by a bit. I'm going to push this one this way. I'll push this one this way. And then what I'm going to do, because we know that this extrusion is pretty much centered, I'm trying to find something that kind of will allow me to gauge where this needs to go. So basically what I'm doing is, as odd as it sounds, I'm kind of using Yep, kind of using this as a feeler gauge. It's not the most precise thing in the world, but it'll get us where we need to be. Tighten that. Tighten that. There's that. And there's that. All right. That's pretty much holding that in place. So now we can get our screws in the second one. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, right? This right here. Okay. Screw number 2. Number 3. Number 4. All right, those are finger tight, and then you guys are now really loose because everything is so far away. Tighten them up. No, I'll get that one in. So I'll call this a strong finger tight at this point on these. I mean, things need to be tightened, but we're dealing with a very small printer here. It's not, the forces at play aren't super great. There we go. All right. Ooh, look at that movement, huh? All right, let's get back to our screen, see where we're at. We did that, we did that. All right, now let's see, X-axis end stop strike block. So it looks like they're utilizing some extrusion corners. Not 100% why, but they are. So this is getting pushed back here. There's a block going in here. Block going in here. What are those blocks? In here. Unless those are printed. Are those printed? I don't know. Let's see. I could be wrong. Those aren't necessarily extrusion corners. They look like them. They're not in there. Let's see if they're in the build plate parts. Nope, that's definitely just build plate parts. Where else could they be? Connectors, that. Fuses. I am not quite sure where those are. All right. Well, fun there, huh? Well, as opposed to wasting any more time, I'm going to call out the end of this one. I'm going to follow up, figure out where the hell those parts are and if they're actually part of this kit. But if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'll appreciate that. I appreciate you watching either way. And join me next time. See you later.